The chandeliers inside Kensington Palace glittered like stars that night. A royal banquet in full grace, laughter echoing off marble walls. But in the midst of elegance and candlelight, the room suddenly froze. Princess Catherine, radiant moments before, swayed. Her hand trembled as her glass fell and shattered. Gasps cut through the music. Prince William's chair scraped the floor, his eyes wide with disbelief as he rushed to her side. In that single instant, time seemed to stop for the royal family. What had happened behind those golden doors? Was it exhaustion? Or something deeper, something the public was never meant to see? If your heart skipped a beat just imagining that moment, you're not alone. Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind one of the most emotional nights in royal history. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, because this story will leave you with goosebumps and maybe even a tear. Let's step inside Kensington, together. The night air around Kensington Palace shimmered with quiet anticipation. Beyond the gates, the lawns were trimmed to perfection, and the glow from the palace windows cast soft amber trails across the gravel paths. Inside, the sound of violins mingled with gentle laughter, a royal evening that seemed painted in perfection. It was meant to be a celebration, a state banquet welcoming distinguished guests, friends, and dignitaries from across the Commonwealth. For weeks, every detail had been planned. The crystal glassware, the gold-edged china, the floral centerpieces arranged with white roses and blue hyacinths. Catherine's favorite. She entered the hall gracefully, every eye following her. Catherine, radiant in an ivory gown, a delicate tiara glinting beneath the chandeliers, carried herself with that rare mix of grace and quiet humanity. Those who saw her that night said she looked angelic, though a touch pale. Still, she smiled, the kind of smile that hides everything, even when the heart is heavy. Prince William, standing by her side, noticed. He always did. But royal duty demanded composure, and his eyes softened just enough to reassure her. "You're doing great, darling." The toast began. Glasses lifted, cameras flashed. The orchestra swelled with soft strings. But somewhere behind that regal calm, something wasn't right. Catherine's fingers trembled slightly on the stem of her glass. Her lips pressed together, a fleeting moment, barely visible. But William saw it. He always saw it. Then the room fell silent. A soft clink, the sound of her glass slipping, echoed louder than any trumpet fanfare. Catherine's shoulders dipped, her breath caught, and before anyone could react, she swayed forward. The tiara tilted as she collapsed gently against the table. The orchestra froze mid-note. Chairs scraped. Gasps filled the air. The Prime Minister's napkin dropped from his hand. The royal physician, seated 3 tables away, leapt up. William didn't hesitate. His chair scraped violently as he rushed to her side, his arm sliding around her before she could hit the ground. "Kate, Kate, look at me," he whispered, his voice trembling, though the cameras couldn't hear it. Her eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, dazed, her lips trying to form a word. "I'm fine," she murmured, though it was clear she wasn't. The courtiers moved quickly, shielding her from the guests. Staff cleared a space, curtains drawn slightly to protect the scene from public view. Guests murmured, confused and worried, as William carried her gently out of the hall, the pearls of her necklace clinking softly against her gown. Outside the grand doors, the silence was deafening. Only the faint sound of her breathing broke it. The palace doctor's voice was calm but firm. "We need to move her to the private suite." William nodded, his jaw tight. Cameras outside would already be wondering why the royal couple had left early. Inside, courtiers scrambled. The orchestra resumed softly, as if pretending nothing had happened could erase what everyone had seen. But for William, time had stopped.
He sat beside her bed in the private wing, holding her hand, watching her chest rise and fall. Her pulse was weak but steady. "She's dehydrated, possibly exhausted," the doctor said quietly, glancing at William. "She's been under immense pressure, perhaps too much." William's eyes darkened. He knew. He'd seen the signs. The long days, the endless royal schedules, the night she couldn't sleep. She'd smiled through it all, public smiles at her private struggles. "Cancel tomorrow's event," he ordered quietly. "But, sir—" "I said cancel it." His tone sharp, protective. "Downstairs," whispers grew. "Did you see her?" "She went pale as snow," one guest murmured. "They say she's been unwell for weeks," another added. But the truth was deeper than anyone outside those walls could imagine. The next morning, headlines spun wildly. Catherine collapsed, shocks palace. Concern for Princess Kate's health. Prince William rushes to her side. The palace issued a simple statement. The Princess of Wales experienced a brief moment of discomfort during last night's event. She is recovering well. But behind that brief statement lay sleepless nights. In the quiet of Kensington's royal quarters, William barely left her side. Catherine awoke hours later, confused but smiling faintly at the sight of him. "You didn't have to stay," she whispered. "I wasn't going anywhere," he replied softly, brushing her hand with his thumb. She looked away, her voice faint. "It's all just too much sometimes." The words hung heavy between them. For years, they carried the weight of public expectation, the constant scrutiny, the endless appearances, the invisible pressure to be perfect. Catherine, with her calm presence, had become the nation's comfort. But who comforted her? William realized then she had been running on grace and willpower for far too long. Outside, the world kept spinning, unaware of the quiet battle within Kensington's walls. The banquet that was meant to celebrate unity had instead revealed fragility, a reminder that even royals bleed, even princesses break. That night, as rain began to fall softly against the palace windows, William stood by the window, his reflection blending with the city lights. He wasn't thinking about cameras or headlines, only about her, the woman who carried so much with so little complaint. He whispered to himself, almost like a vow, "No more pretending everything's fine." Behind him, the sound of a soft exhale. She was sleeping, finally at peace. And though the palace outside glittered as always, within those walls, a storm had been felt, a storm that would quietly reshape the royal family's path forever. The morning after the banquet felt strangely hollow inside Kensington Palace. Reporters gathered beyond the gates, their voices muffled by the rain, cameras flashing against umbrellas. Inside, the corridors were unusually still. No staff chatter, no movement beyond the sound of footsteps echoing softly across marble floors. Catherine woke slowly, her lashes fluttering open to the gentle hum of rain outside. A tray of tea rested beside her bed. William sat near the window, his posture weary but alert, his gaze fixed on the gardens that once felt so alive. "William." Her voice broke the silence, fragile but steady. He turned instantly, relief softening his expression. "Hey, you awake?" She smiled faintly. "You didn't sleep, did you?" He shook his head, forcing a small grin. "Couldn't. You scared the life out of me last night." Her eyes lowered. "I didn't mean to." He reached for her hand. "I know. You've been pushing yourself too hard." The words lingered, the kind that come from love but carry truth too heavy to ignore. Catherine sighed, her fingers tightening around his. "It's just, there's so much expected of us. Every event, every smile, every headline. Sometimes I feel like I'm performing a role I can't step out of." William's expression softened. "You don't have to do it alone anymore." But they both knew, in the royal world, even rest came with rules. Later that day, the royal physician met with William privately. His tone was respectful but firm. "She's experiencing fatigue beyond normal exhaustion. There are signs of anxiety, possibly burnout. I strongly recommend she steps back for a while." William nodded slowly, though his heart sank. A while, in palace language, could mean weeks of speculation, endless public questions, and inevitable gossip. As the doctor left, William walked through the long corridor lined with portraits of ancestors, kings, queens, warriors, each painted with pride, yet none carrying the burdens of modern royal life. He paused beneath one portrait, Queen Elizabeth, young and determined. Duty first. The phrase echoed through history. But where did love fit in? Meanwhile, across the city, the news had already spread like wildfire. Television panels debated, tabloids speculated. Is the Princess of Wales hiding a deeper illness? Some called for transparency, others defended privacy. Social media flooded with concern. Pray for Kate trended worldwide. But behind those palace walls, Catherine wasn't thinking about hashtags or headlines. She was thinking about her children. That afternoon, she asked the nanny to bring them in, George, Charlotte, and Louis. The moment they entered, laughter filled the quiet room again. Little Louis ran straight to her, climbing onto her lap. "Are you okay, Mummy?" he asked, his voice innocent and trembling. She smiled, brushing his hair gently. "I'm okay now, my love." George stood near the bed, serious as always. "We saw it on the news," he admitted quietly. "They said you fainted." Catherine's heart sank, but she managed a calm tone. "Sometimes grown-ups get tired too, but I promise I'm going to rest." It wasn't just reassurance, it was a promise she finally meant. Over the following days, William cancelled several engagements. The press noticed immediately. Prince William postpones royal tour. Concern mounts over Kate's health. But behind those headlines was something rare. Stillness. For once, Kensington wasn't running on schedules or appearances. The couple spent quiet evenings together. They read bedtime stories, took short walks in the palace garden when the rain stopped. Catherine began to breathe again, not for cameras, not for duty, but for herself. And yet, she couldn't shake the guilt. "I feel like I've let people down," she confessed one night as they sat near the fireplace. William turned to her, the flickering firelight reflecting in his eyes. "You haven't let anyone down. You carried this family, this country, on your shoulders with grace. It's time someone carried you." Her eyes welled up. "Sometimes I wish we could just disappear for a while." He smiled faintly. "Maybe we can, in our own way." He meant it. In the days that followed, Kensington's press office received strict instructions. No photos, no updates, no statements. For once, the royal family drew a curtain of silence not out of secrecy, but protection. Still, not everyone approved. Inside the palace, advisors whispered concerns about public perception and duty image. But William's tone left no room for debate. "She's my wife before she's your headline." It was the first time in years he'd spoken like that, not as a prince, but as a husband. Catherine, meanwhile, began journaling. In the quiet of her room, she wrote about the burden of expectation, the loneliness of perfection, the invisible weight of always being watched. Her words were raw, unpolished, deeply human. One entry read, "They see a smile, a gown, a title. But behind it, there's a heartbeat trying to stay steady under crown's weight." That single line summed up everything she'd felt. Weeks passed. The world moved on to new stories, new distractions. But inside Kensington, something had changed. William started limiting their public appearances, insisting on fewer engagements and more family time. It was subtle, but powerful. For the first time, the royal couple prioritized their humanity over the crown. One evening, as the children played near the window, Catherine turned to William and said softly, "Do you ever think we'll find balance?" He smiled, slipping his arm around her. "Maybe balance isn't something we find. Maybe it's something we fight for every day." That night, as they watched the sunset fade over London, the world outside kept spinning. But for once, inside Kensington Palace, there was peace, fragile, precious, and real. And yet, peace in the royal world never lasts forever. For while the palace settled into quiet recovery, rumors had begun to stir again, whispers of changes, of challenges yet to come. And in those whispers, the next chapter of their love and their resilience was already waiting to unfold. Days turned into weeks, and slowly the rhythm of Kensington Palace began to steady again. The press had moved on, at least on the surface, but William knew better. Every time he stepped outside those tall palace gates, flashes of cameras reminded him, the world never truly forgets. Catherine's recovery was quiet but fragile. There were good days, mornings when she'd laugh with the children over breakfast, and difficult ones when exhaustion returned like a shadow that refused to lift. But William stood firm, anchoring her through each wave. He began taking over more of her public duties, often telling aides, "Let her rest, I'll handle it." Behind that statement was a simple truth. He'd learned what mattered most. Titles fade, duties shift, but love stays. One rainy afternoon, William visited the small chapel within Kensington. It was nearly empty, save for a flickering candle near the altar. He sat quietly, head bowed, not in formality, but in prayer. He whispered softly, "Please, just give her strength. Take it from me if you must." Those words never made it to the headlines. They weren't meant to, but they revealed a side of William few ever see. Not the prince, not the heir, but the man who had seen too much heartbreak already and couldn't bear to lose a woman who gave his world its light. Weeks later, Catherine appeared again in public. It wasn't a grand event, no flashing tiaras or golden gowns, just a charity visit to a children's hospital. But when she walked in, the staff clapped softly, and one child whispered, "She's back." Her smile that day was different. Not the polished, camera-ready one, but gentle, real. The kind that said, "I've been through something, and I'm still standing." William stood a few steps behind her, his eyes never leaving her. Every gesture, every word she spoke filled him with pride. Not because she was perfect, but because she was human. After the visit, as they sat quietly in the car, Catherine looked at him and said, "I was so afraid that night. I thought, what if I let everyone down?" William reached over, taking her hand. "You didn't let anyone down. You reminded them that even the strongest hearts need rest. That's not weakness, Kate, that's courage." She smiled, tears glistening but unfallen. "You really think people saw it that way?" He chuckled softly. "The people saw a princess, but I saw my wife, and that's all that matters." As spring arrived, so did renewal. The palace grounds bloomed again, tulips, daffodils, roses. The same gardens where their children once played now symbolized something more profound, rebirth. William and Catherine began taking evening walks together, just the two of them, no cameras, no staff. They talked about everything and nothing, the children, the pressures, the future. One evening, the sunset painted the London sky in gold. Catherine stopped, looking at the horizon. "You know," she said softly, "sometimes I still feel guilty for collapsing, for worrying everyone." William shook his head. "You shouldn't. That moment changed everything for me. It made me realize we don't live to serve the crown. We serve each other, our children, and the people. That's what matters." She smiled. "You sound like your mother." He paused, then nodded, emotion flickering behind his eyes. "She taught me that love always has to come before duty, or it's not worth anything." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment everything felt still. The palace loomed behind them, a place of power and history, but it was their laughter, their quiet understanding, that made it a home. Months later, Catherine gave a rare interview, not scripted, not formal, just her and a quiet voice of honesty. She spoke about that night at the banquet, carefully but sincerely. "I learned that strength isn't about standing tall when everything's perfect. It's about standing up again after you've fallen, and realizing you don't have to do it alone." Her words resonated deeply across the world. Viewers wept. Thousands left comments thanking her for her vulnerability. For once, royalty felt human again. William watched that interview from a quiet room inside the palace. As she spoke, he smiled softly, pride swelling in his chest. When she finished, she looked over at him, camera lights dimming, and whispered, "Did I say too much?" He shook his head, walking over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You said exactly what people needed to hear." As the credits of that emotional interview rolled on television, millions of hearts across the world felt something shift. It wasn't about scandal or spectacle anymore. It was about truth, love, and the silent battles fought behind palace walls. And in the end, the story that began with heartbreak became one of resilience, not of titles, but of two souls choosing each other again and again, even in the storm. That night, as the lights of London shimmered across the Thames, Kensington Palace stood in peaceful silence. Inside, laughter drifted from a softly lit room, William reading bedtime stories, Catherine beside him, their children curled up close. The world outside would never truly stop watching. But within those walls, the only audience that mattered was right there in their arms. And that was Heartbreak at Kensington, a story that reminded the world that even behind crowns and titles, the heart beats the same. What we witnessed wasn't just a royal collapse, it was a moment of awakening for love, for family, for humanity. So, what do you think? Should the royals show more of their real selves? The tears, the fears, the truth behind the smiles? Or does mystery keep the magic alive? Share your thoughts in the comment below. I read every one of them. Speech Balloon, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss our next emotional royal journey. Because in every palace, in every heart, there's always another story waiting to be told. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay kind, stay curious, and stay royal. Crown Sparkles.